Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025. It's nice to see a room full of people. Thank you for coming in. You're all veterans, and so I know you all know about the guest book. But just in case you forgot to sign the guest book, I hope you'll do so before you leave today. I understand we have 2 virtual participants with us online today. And we do stream all of our meetings. You don't have to come in here, but we do appreciate it when you do. All right, I hope everyone has had a chance to look at the draft agenda. And without objection, we'll approve the agenda for today. And hearing none, that agenda is approved. Everyone get a chance to take a look at the minutes of our last meeting, which was, what, March 5th?
3rd, wasn't it?
3rd, was it? Okay.
Was
5th,
it
5th,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, day after, yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of
It's
day.
my grandson's birthday.
What it says at the top of these minutes.
Yes. Okay, without objection, then we will approve the minutes of the meeting of March 5th. And hearing no objection, those minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Third item on today's agenda is office updates. Director Duncan.
Thank you. Okay, we have several updates to give. So one is that Nate held the first candidate info session, which I'm excited about. That's a new initiative as part of getting that position last year. That was at the Weaverville Community Center on March 6th, and that went really well. At that meeting, we also connected with the new recreation director who oversees Weaverville Community Center and chatted with him about voting too. So we started that relationship. The next thing is the NCADE, North Carolina Association for Directors of Elections Conference, was the 23rd through the 25th. About half of our staff attended that. And I was presented on the Helene panel. I think that we talked about that last meeting time, that I was going to do that, and it went well. I think that it was useful for people. That following Friday, we had the District 1 NCAD meeting here that we hosted in Buncombe. Thank you all for attending that. That was great. Karen Brinson Bell was there, as well as John Shellcross from the Board Association. So we had NCADE, the State Board, and the Board Association presenting there. I had also presented about Helene preparations and experience at the district meeting in New Bern earlier that week too. So we were kind of trading stories that way. Changing gears a little bit, we reached out to the both party chairs, new party chairs for the Democrats and Republican parties. We sent 2 emails, one that talked about being on the board, and then another that had general information of here's the people that are most relevant contacts for you, as well as information about here's our website, here's a link to the most current law book, those kind of things. So we're making sure to have start out with communication there. Karen Ray has also met with both of them to introduce them to the poll worker recruitment process. It seems early to be talking about all of this stuff, but it is not. The next update I have is the county has started a mentor-mentee program. So if you sign up for this program, then you get paired with someone from anywhere in the county, and you can kind of work on professional goals. Help the mentor will help the mentee achieve some professional goals. So 3 people in our department signed up to do that, 1 as a mentee and 2 as a mentor. And I'm excited about that. I think it does a lot of things, helps with cross-departmental collaboration, but then also people can learn about elections. My last 2 updates is we have started data vetting for the eventual warehouse move. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. We have the data that was collected 2 years ago, and then we did another collection, but it was during the recount just now. So we need to make sure that we look over that again. I've showed that to staff. They're all looking at it. We have a meeting on Friday where we'll all go over it together. And then on Monday, we'll go over with it with Robert Brown, who presented at one of our meetings.
Director Duncan, is there anything in the data that you're providing that gives us flexibility for growth? Because my concern about 35 is it gives us no flexibility for growth whatsoever. And I would hate to see the same mistake made at the warehouse.
That is a great question. And in Robert's spreadsheet that he sent me, there is a column for growth, a growth factor. So they are thinking about it, and that's a category that we'll make sure that we
Okay.
look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, great question.
Can I piggyback on that?
Oh, yeah,
Too,
sounds
before you move
good.
on to the last update, thinking about the data collection piece, trying to maybe not make our same mistakes. A couple of things. One is, will you have an opportunity to give ideas about other data that needs to be presented rather than just whatever they presented on the data sheet?
Yes, so we'll go over the data sheet. If it doesn't have everything that we think it should have on it, we will ask for it to be added at the Monday meeting.
Okay.
There is a training center component to this, which I am excited about.
And then to follow up on Mr. Acito's idea from way back about, feels like way back, about what our potential possibility, what the possibilities are for us to have all of election services at the warehouse in the future. If we decided that we don't like to be separated. Is that going to be in some early discussions as well, so we don't lose sight of that possibility? Whether we want it or not, I don't know yet, but just as part of the discussion.
I am happy to bring it up again. It felt like that wasn't on the table anymore the last time that we brought that up, but I am happy to bring it up again and get a more definitive answer.
Felt like it wasn't on the table for
Consolidating everything at the,
from the county's point of view.
yes.
Right. And what they need to do is view this board as a partner. And a partner has say-so in the project outline. So, as you all may be aware, I did ask county management to brief this board today on the status of that warehouse project. They are not prepared to do that today. They're not prepared to do it for a host of reasons. But it gives me a very, very deep concern about the timetable that we've got and the burdens that might impose on staff as we enter this election cycle.
What's the timetable?
The timetable was to break ground on Cox Avenue the first quarter of 2027. We have a pretty big election just a couple of months before that. And so to break ground for a warehouse the first quarter of 27, I would hope that the old warehouse would have already been taken care of, materials relocated, and everything settled. I think the chances of getting that done are somewhere between slim and none. And that is why this board needs to know in no uncertain terms what the county's timetable is and whether or not it's realistic. So I'm going to reiterate my request to county management. I'm going to ask them to come to the next meeting. Now, I know that they're going to ask to communicate through Director Duncan. That is not what I want, and I don't think that's what this board wants. I expect the project manager to come in here and brief the board and respond to the board's questions. And with any luck, we are going to see that at the next meeting. Are there any more updates, Director Duncan?
That's all that I have for the warehouse.
Okay.
I have two more. One thing I missed from the District 1 meeting, which is, well, two things really. One is that Mary Ann is the district rep for the board association,
Right.
which is great, especially since I'm the district rep for the Directors Association. So we will have a really good Western North Carolina voice there. Yes, so congratulations, Mary Ann.
Well, congratulations and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for stepping up and
Thanks, Steve.
and being the person. well, Steve made the nomination, but you had to accept.
Without telling me ahead of time.
And well, the element of surprise can be a little fun.
It's the elephant of surprise.
Elephant of surprise.
I can't remember who I was sitting by, but I said, I hope it's Mary Ann.
Yeah, I just
Well,
You're a good
thank
pick.
you, and thank you for mentioning it, because it is a big fat hairy deal.
it is.
And we have a wealth of people on this board who would be absolutely appropriate for that position. So, and I'm just agnostic about all that. But I was reacting at the moment, and no, I hadn't talked to dear Mary Ann, and she's very appreciate that I went. That I got out to the car, and the car still had air in the tires.
You got there first.
And I got there first. Okay. So, but anyway, but I think it really it's a natural thing. There is we owe the institutional history and the leadership skills that have come out of this board and its staff. We owe that. We owe that. We just had the gift of a stable board relationship, a stable relationship with the county. And that's a great thing to build on. So anyway, and I'm grateful for every one of you. I think that God appointed you to this board. You may think that the governor did or somebody, but no, I think God did it because he has a place for you in blessing this community, and you have gifts. You all have special gifts. And I'm just so glad to see Mary Ann recognized for that.
Yeah.
So, and going forward, I just think it's spectacular. Thank you. Anyway, thanks for bringing it up. Carry on.
Well, let's add, for the sake of our public, what that means about being on the region board of directors. What are we trying to do on this? Maybe just give them a nutshell of that.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to do that.
Okay.
So
I'm new.
you can, you all can fill in too. So there's really kind of three entities for North Carolina elections that are directly for North Carolina. That of course is the State Board of Elections, and they're over administration, and they do our state trainings that are required by law. So that's what the board goes to the state board trainings. Then there's the NCADE. NCADE, some people call it, North Carolina Association. It's backwards to me. And that association originally was only directors. They would come together, pay dues, and advocate for directors and staff. Then there is the board association, and those are board members who come together and advocate for elections, and each one of those has unique windows into elections and unique audiences, and I think that it's important that all three of those are strong. And the board association and the directors association both need a boost now, so I think it's great that we're going to participate in that.
An example of that might be that the state board of directors that has representatives from each of the districts can help with advocacy at the state level. They can do education. So all this that we've gone through recently with our move, and our struggle about that and our communications with the county, all of that could be shared with other districts where they might have something similar going on. Or if they have some information that we don't have and we need, then we can learn from the other directors about how it was managed. So those are just some kind of, to me, some real concrete things that I think we can do, and it hasn't been as effective in the last few years. And having someone like Mary Ann on it, I call her the dog with a bone, it'll be really good because she's going to ask questions and she's going to want something to occur. She's not going to want to waste her time and energy either. And so it's really good to have someone like Mary Ann on there that we trust to take that leadership and go with it to represent us as board members. So thank you again.
Yeah, the North Carolina Election Board Association, as well as the NCADE, recently sent letters to the General Assembly about the problems posed by Senate Bill 382 and the deadlines on absentee ballots, provisional ballots, that kind of stuff. The value of this election board association is having that voice, because we've got experience. Every board member who saw that law pass was like, how can we possibly do this? Having an entity that can speak for board members with impartiality might be able to get useful information to our legislators so that they can refine the laws or maybe even refine them before they become laws to make them more practical. There's a real opportunity here to make things better. There's so much going on in our election environment. This should help communications a lot. I hope so.
Yeah, they're both very good networking opportunities too, so that we can know who is who.
This is a bit off topic, but you did mention SB 382. I dug up a order from the White County Superior Court that indicated that the hearing on that was going to be held on March 24th, but that's been moved to April 14th.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, April 14th is the hearing with respect to, I think the focus is on who administers elections.
So it's issues about the state board and the county board and the composition
Well,
of it.
Governor versus auditor
Right.
for the state board and county boards. Right, yeah, that's April 14th.
Yeah, and that would take an effect May 1st, so that's why it needs to happen soon. Staff keeps putting things in the chat for me to talk about, so I'm just going to keep going.
Okay.
Another update is that the county is moving from .org to .gov. And I believe your emails have already changed.
Yes.
Yes. And so that actually went really smoothly. We didn't have any issues with that. The next phase will be switching our website, and that's supposed to be by the end of the year. Elections does have a really complicated website, so I anticipate that taking some time to work through. But that is another thing that's scheduled for this year. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but .gov has extra security, so it is a good it's a good move. It'll be a bit complicated, but it's good. The next thing is our move to 35 Woodfin is scheduled for May 1st. So that is a Thursday. And we are getting prepared for that. You might see a stack of boxes in the corner. So the county has hired a moving company to help with everything. So our job is to get loose things packed. They'll move all the furniture and electronics and everything. Not the 950. We will move the 950 ourselves. But things seem to be on schedule for that to happen. And the county has started to announce that. So the press release went out 2 days ago, I believe, the first press release. And they're giving us materials. And then we have advertising money as well, so we'll do our own campaign just for elections.
Well, we
to
get an
make sure
update
that
on
we
the
have
cost
on
of
the
moving us.
cost of moving us. I'm happy to ask that.
Does that include us moving the 950? Is that gonna cost us?
We just do it. Ryan does it.
Okay.
Put it in a van
An
and
extra cost.
And there are little flyers if anybody wants them to hang anywhere, or put somewhere, or. I tried to give one to George and he gave it back to me, 'cause I wanted it.
But we're on track. The moving person is working with us. All is well for being on that schedule. And then the last thing that Negi will be really happy that I reminded everyone is that she's back.
right.
So now I'm gonna go on vacation. No, just kidding. Negi is back. Everything went well with her and her family, and so she came back on Tuesday afternoon. So she's getting caught up right now, but we are very happy to have her back, especially with the looming move. And I don't see any other notes in the chat, so I think my updates are complete.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All right, thank you, Director Duncan. Oh boy, the next item is item 4, discussion of the Commissioner's reply to resolution number 2025-02. Everyone get a copy of the reply? Yep, here it is. Here's that reply. I didn't find a lot of information in there.
A lot of smoke.
Yeah, I mean,
But it is what it is.
Yeah, and they looked like they went to the Carolina law, which we had gone to as well, and their interpretation may be a little different than ours about including reasonable and just compensation. They definitely pointed out the Director of Elections component, which was something that we had worked on, you had worked on 2 years ago. But they kind of cited that same area to say that they were taking care of us, basically, and we were getting what we needed from them. And we'll assist the Board of Elections and Director of Elections in providing a uniform system of personnel administration under the ordinances, policies, procedures applicable to county employees. Okay?
Which is interesting because we were talking about office space.
Right. Yeah, they kind of didn't approach that piece too directly.
We've talked about revisiting the memorandum of understanding that we executed with the board a couple of years ago. I think it just makes sense to do that. I think it makes sense for if not this board, the next board to take a look at that memorandum of understanding.
My take was that, I'm sorry,
No, go.
the other day, you mentioned to me you thought the letter was non-responsive to
That
the
is correct.
resolution, and I agree, it was non-responsive, but it sent a message. And the message I thought it sent was, you've got enough, we've done enough, get over there and get to work. That's what I thought the message was. So, based on what Steve said earlier, and a couple of meetings back, the move will be what it is. If it works out, that's great. If it doesn't work out, then the future board will have something to talk about. But that brought up another question in my mind. From when we got the first, and I wanted to give the county credit, from when we got the first diagram of the workspace to what it is now, have they made some changes in terms of taking people, and this has always been kind of my beef about it, taking people out of these open air cubicles and somehow constructing offices for some of those folks? Or has that always been? I haven't seen the space, so I'm,
Are you talking about election services or?
yeah,
or-
yeah, election services over at the new location.
So there were spaces that were for storage that we decided could be offices. They never got deemed offices, but that's what we'll be using them as. It's not enough. There are people that will have to be in cubicles. But the design was not changed to be that way, if that's what you're asking.
So you took some space that was not office space and was able to turn it into offices for
Yes.
people whose work requirements demand an office.
Yes.
So it's not just going to be a bunch of people sitting at cubicles. It's going to be fewer people sitting at cubicles in an office, but still some people in cubicles.
For permanent staff.
Yeah, I'm just
Yes.
talking about permanent staff, not the seasonal workers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, well, there'll be 2 permanent staff in cubicles.
So it's,
Permanents and cubicles.
so is it, so is it fair to say the county made some accommodation?
No.
No. Okay.
I think that Corrine and staff are being as creative as possible in figuring out how to get the optimal use of the space that's being provided. And so, converting the storage area to office space is the kind of, flexibility that they have at the margin, but it's only there at the margin. I mean, the space that's been assigned is the space.
Now, because we did that, they are buying desks. Since we made that decision, they're furnishing the decision that we made.
Good. It's called customer service.
And we're bringing, stuff from here too.
Is the staff happier or more satisfied with the space than before, or is it about the same?
I mean, the original plan had more permanent staff in cubicles, but that was really our decision. The building structure did not change.
Right.
We decided to repurpose areas for staff, and that was definitely something that staff likes.
I've discussed this 2 or 3 times with the interim county attorney, Kurt Euler. And it's a little awkward because Mr. Euler, whose help I have appreciated tremendously, Mr. Euler has been very, very helpful to me. But that can only go so far. And he has made that clear. The county is his client, number one. And after reading this and understanding that we do need to revisit the MOU, I got an idea. And that was to put a contingency item in our budget, a $20,000 contingency item for outside legal help. It's contingency. It's not definite, but $20,000 buys a week, basically, of $500 an hour legal help. I definitely pursued the wrong career. Should have been an attorney, like Steve and like Glenn.
Like Kurt.
And like Kurt, right? But I don't know. That was just my reaction when I read this. It was like, we need to do some serious discussion with the county, and I would feel more comfortable if the board had its own legal help for that. And so I'm sort of segueing into the next agenda item. And I just want to kind of throw that out there just to, what do y'all think?
You are asking, right?
Yeah, I am asking. We got 5 different people on this board. Everyone's opinion is really important to me.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I think you ought to look around, and not necessarily just in Asheville, but outside of Asheville, Charlotte, places like that. And you may find somebody who's willing to do it for less than $500 an hour.
Right.
And I think you ought to get, for things like this, I think you ought to get somebody on retainer to just, for the future board, to ask, who knows government administrative law inside out. I guess the question is, can you get that approved in the budget? But
Well, it would be a
I mean, I don't
contingency
know.
item.
Yeah, I mean-
And I don't see how it could not be approved. It's a contingency item, and if the Board of Elections needs outside legal help, then the Board of Elections needs outside legal help. We've used it before. We had to go out and get outside opinion on the law that governed Asheville civic elections and whether or not there were going to be districts. Because the General Assembly passed a law that made it districts. And then the City Council later passed a law that converted it back to at-large. And we were approaching the Asheville City election, and the question was, is it district or is it at-large? And we sought guidance from the State Board of Elections, and they said, ask your county attorney. And we asked our county attorney, and they said, no, so we don't, that's beyond our pay grade or something. So we actually had to go out and get an outside opinion to do that. So, well, I think it was like $2,500 or $3,000, and we did have an item in the budget for legal transcription. If we have a hearing, we need a court reporter, and so there was money in the budget for that, and I think that's what we used to cover the. It wasn't a big expense because it was one question that we asked a law firm to answer for us, and they did, and then that was that.
Well, I think having spoken off the top of my head on a number of times in these meetings and said things that weren't correct. No, seriously, I think I think you have to have somebody you can pose a question to, have them go and do legal research, do a memo about it. And what do y'all think?
No, you go. No, I was actually going to start about something else, so it's your turn.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Jake. Thank you, Glenn. I want to say what he said and leave it at that, but I just read this letter. I could think of, let's say, 3 things. Thing one is that while this letter was written in response to a request that we made in an open meeting, it isn't really written to us. This is a letter to the jury.
Right.
So, and I think that's a good thing. That tells me that the commissioners have understand that they are accountable to our stakeholders, as we are. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing. So you should be encouraged. You've stayed a good course on this. Second is the use of the word partnership. I realize that's intended as a relational word, I'm sorry. If I'm not mistaken, our chairman of the commissioners is a counselor or something like that, and that's, again, no shame in that, but I think we have to be a little more sharp on that and recognize that partnership is a legal word. It's not a relational word. People use it as a relational word, but it's not a relational word. Partnership is a legal word. It's a legal relationship, and it has a lot of implications. The sharing of profits and losses, the sharing of authority to make commitments and contracts, and also a shared stake in a particular enterprise, as though it were a business or a project. While I appreciate being relationally regarding people as partners or peers or equals, which is, I think, what's intended there, that is not the legal relationship of this board to the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. And the problem with that comes up in that if their legal counsel is advising us, then there is a conflict of interest because we are responsible for the election of the county commissioners. So that is an inherent conflict of interest.
That's a good point.
And it's a very significant legal conflict of interest. Let he who has ears to hear it. So, Mr. Quinn, Mr. Schultz, you are spot on. Not only do we need separate legal counsel to manage this conflict of interest and to demonstrate our respect for it. It is up to us to respect that and defend the relationship from that point of view. We need to get politically savvy counsel. We need to prepare to get somebody's attention with a letter. We have to be very careful about this. Not so much as a weapon, but because of that conflict of interest. We have to be able to demonstrate that we acted independently, because that is what the law requires. So that we are not favoring the mantra, you can probably quote it better than me, we're not favoring a particular candidate, we're not favoring a party, we're not favoring a sector of the electorate. So if we are truly going to be in that space, that independent space, yes, we need independent legal counsel, and aggressively so. So such that the commissioners should realize that their bread is buttered on the same side when we ask for that appropriation, because they need to be able to look their voters in the eye and say, we preserve the independence of this board. So, and what I see us having done over the last 2 years, starting with the question about Corinne's employment relationship, the supervisory relationship, where she fits in the org chart, and what she's going to be paid. You notice that got brought up here.
Yes.
Friends, that is where it started.
Right.
And it hurts, but you know what? It's a good thing, because we established that we are going to be governed by the legal relationship that's set out in the general statutes. And that's how we preserve our independence, not by being combative or having an adversarial relationship, but that we hew to the statute. And that we ask that of the county commissioners. And they have said in this letter that they agree with that. So, we're not in a bad place, we're in a good place. So going forward, what I would commend you all to think through is, what are your objectives for the relationship with the county commissioners? What does that look like when it's independent, it follows the statute, and allows us to do our job, which we have to do in the context of being part of the county, but they're not our legal partners. Okay, we can have this sort of regard for them that partners would have for one another, and have that kind of relational aspect. But they are not partners with us. We are not partners with them. That is a different legal word. That's a magic word. And it invokes all kinds of things that Harry Potter would be proud of. So don't use magic. Anyway, that's it. So yeah, I think that should be the next consideration, is that we make our intent clear to seek independent legal counsel, and make the reason clear that we understand that that we have to have a legal relationship independent of the county, because the law requires it, and they should seek it because they want to appear as we do, independent, for purposes of being us supervising their, being the county commissioners, election.
Good. Thank you. Ms. Brain?
It just occurred to me.
Mr. Schultz.
While Steve was talking. I don't know if this happens, Corinne and Jake, but is there somebody from the county that typically watches the meetings? Because, you know, it may be better if there was actually somebody from the county who is vested with the responsibility of either coming to the meetings or watching the meetings online or watching the meetings after it's over with, just so they have and this may happen, I don't know, but just so they have a meeting to meeting, month to month understanding of what goes on at the Board of Elections. I know you emphasize communication a lot, so, Corinne, and it may happen, I don't know, but it seems like my sense is that they kind of tune in when there's a controversy, but apart from that, they just don't really know what goes on over here. But that's,
Yeah, Mr. Quinn, I want to speak to that. That's huge, and there's just a lot of nuance in that I want to commend to you to think through. Going back to this, what is your objective for the relationship with the county commissioners? And again, like partnership, it's a wonderful word. Communication is another wonderful word. But and I don't pretend to have all the answers on this. I mean, I've just begun to think about it. Really, to be honest with you, is that if the county commissioners are expected to tune in and be aware of everything we're doing, can they be truly independent? And can we be independent of them? You know, is there another way that we manage that relationship? Because it's not again, it's a peculiar sort of legal relationship. It's not it's not like a family, even. It's something else. Again, it's independent because we supervise their election, and that's like a watershed difference. That's just that's the parting of the waters at that point. So it's too early to draw conclusions about any of this. We have to think it through. But that's really this board's responsibility to think it through. This is how we earn our $90 a meeting, whatever it is.
Not a meeting.
Whatever it is we get. And careful, if I talk too much, they're going to cut it again. But
I'm going to do an audit of that.
There's a lot in a word. I'll come back to that. There's just a lot in a word. And what do you want to accomplish with that relationship? I'm not sure that them being aware of everything that we say in a meeting is really consistent with that. And I don't know that they have been. You know, I don't have any sense of it.
Oh, I do.
I think we just kind of got on the radar screen all at once here. We could just as easily get off of it. But we have to. I'm talking about us, the five of us. We have to think about what is our objective of that relationship, and how does it impact our independence and our responsibility under the statute, and how does it impact them? Because again, we have to affirm that for them. That's a gift we give them. We give the county commissioners. We give them the gift of independence. So anyway. Well, just keep coming back to that, and I don't know, scribble something down. Think about this. I mean, if we had to establish goals for the relationship, what do they look like in that context?
Well, and that could certainly be part of whatever MOU revisions that we make. That's going to be a great opportunity to have these kind of conversations.
Good reason to go through that, isn't it?
It is a very good reason.
With
to
the
go
help
through
of
it.
independent counsel.
Yeah.
Right.
That are tasked with an understanding, make sure that they understand what our objectives are. Because legal counsel's no good if you don't give them objectives. When I would sit down with people, the first thing I've asked is, what is your objective? What do you want to accomplish here? And it shocked them, you know. But we had the best conversations after that. What do you want to accomplish? So you have to be prepared to task somebody with that. Whether they charge $500 an hour or $200 an hour. But you know, burn that bridge when you come to it. But that's whole part of the task.
And I also think I'm sitting here thinking about Glenn's talking about, well, is the county going to go for this? I think we'll find out a little bit more about our relationships if we put this contingency piece in the budget.
Oh, there's no question but that this will be approved. I've had this discussion with Mr. Euler, and he is the one who has acknowledged that he is in an awkward spot
Okay.
because the county is his client. And he sees in a situation such as
Yeah, but
when
he's
we
not approving the budget.
Yeah, their lawyer's gonna tell them this is a good idea.
yeah, their lawyer's
they
going
may
to tell him
not
this
take
is a
his
very
advice.
good
So,
idea.
right, so,
So and the fact that
This
well,
isn't revolutionary.
my idea is to propose it as a contingency because if we just put it in the budget, I don't want it to look like a shot across the bow.
well, if it comes in as a contingency, it's still got to be present in the budget.
Well, yes, but it's a maybe as opposed to we're going out and hiring a lawyer tomorrow.
Okay.
This is just my view. I mean,
No, I totally,
I'm-
I'm on.
I'm-
I'm smiling because it's still going to be written in there. And I think it'll be interesting to see it's another way we can kind of see where we are with our relationship with the county.
okay. It's good for the county if we do it, so it's, in the end.
Well, I'm
Ms.
learning,
Ms.
and I've
Brain
learned
has
a
not
lot.
said anything on this subject. And I can tell that she has a bunch of ideas.
I'm learning, and I've learned a lot. And I appreciate the opportunity to learn. And I also want to learn from Mary Ann like you do, so what do you think?
Uh-huh.
Well, I think we're avoiding the fact that we do know a lot more about our relationship with the county than anybody here seems to want to admit.
Okay.
The letter from Ms. Edwards to you says, please find the county response to the Board of Education's resolution. Which means they don't even care enough to proofread their communications to us, because that's kind of a simple thing. The other thing is that in this letter, as Mr. Aceto mentioned, there's not one address of any of the issues that we put to them in our resolution. The issues that we found with this move, they ignored completely, made no mention of them whatsoever, and only said, oh, we've done such a good job. And the county employees have done a good job. And the various people that Corrine works with have done a good job, as they should.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's missing here is acknowledging that they should be trying to help us, not that they've done so as though it's a gift of some kind. Because it's not. It's their responsibility too. This is their county. We're simply trying to operate by the statutes that the state provides for us, and that was never intended to be a challenge to their authority, and yet that's the way they've taken it. They've taken that as a, we don't do what you say, you do what we say.
And that's why I use that word partnership, because I want us to meet in the middle. But
Well,
your points are well taken.
meeting in the middle is, I mean, working together.
Right.
But meeting in the middle is not something we can do, because we are bound by the statutes that you have in your book.
Mhm.
And I don't honestly think that the county knows what we do. I don't think they've made any effort to listen. I think when Tim was here, it was just he was here to gauge how we, where we were on the whole issue.
Mhm.
And I'm concerned that unless we, as Mr. Aceto says, we're bound by the statutes that govern this organization. And the county's pretty much told us, no, you're a department of the county and you will go where we want and you will operate as we want you to, and you'll be happy about it. And I don't think that serves our staff, certainly, and I don't think it serves the people that we are bound to serve as far as election goes. So I agree with you as far as I think we need outside legal help. I'm kind of, and this is just personally, I'm kind of disappointed that we've more or less acquiesced to their decisions. I think there should have been a lot more discussion. I think there should have been any discussion, to be honest. There wasn't any discussion with this board on what we actually thought was important. And I think the things that we brought up were serious. They were not trivial by any means, and they were concerns about how our staff could, in fact, do their job effectively without a lot of extra duress, without a lot of extra effort. And I don't see that the county has made any effort at all to understand that. So I think we should seek outside legal assistance because we're bound to do so. And not because anybody here has any animosity towards the county. It's because when I look, and I mentioned this to our county manager, which I think she did not take in the way it was intended, and that is if you look at the county structure on their website, in county policies and in our memorandum of understanding, this organization is equated with two others, with the Sheriff's Department and with the Register of Deeds.
Yep.
Because we are outside of that county structure. And yet, if you look at their structure on their website, we are in their structure. We are not outside as those other two organizations are. That tells me that's the way they view us, that we are a county department and that they tell us what to do. As Mr. Aceto says, that's, to me, a serious conflict of interest. Because if they're telling us how we operate, where we operate from, then it looks like a conflict of interest in that these people that we adjudicate their election are telling us how to run this organization.
Fair enough.
I'm assuming that outside legal help would be the first step, and looking at the memorandum of understanding to clarify would be the second step.
Mr. Schultz?
I think you have to figure out, and I agree, those are all good points. I think you have to, the future board's gonna have to figure out if push comes to shove, what do you do next?
Right.
Well, the
And,
county manager even said to me, and I wasn't quite sure if it was a threat or a promise, and that was, well, you say that you're independent, and we could do that. We would just give you a lump sum of money, but I don't think you'd be happy with that.
Right. The Board of Elections does not want to have its own HR department, its own finance department.
IT.
Yeah, so we take advantage of support services that are provided by the county. The difficulty, and Clyman,
But so does the Sheriff's Department, and so does the Register of Deeds, and there does not seem to be a conflict there.
right.
I mean, if you look on the website, as a matter of fact, one of the communications that we got in our email specifically said down at the bottom, the Sheriff's Department has their own way that they evaluate their employees.
Right, right.
And that doesn't seem to be a problem for the county, so why is it a problem here? That's the question I'd like to find an answer to.
Well, as we look at this MOU, that is exactly the kind of thing that we're going to be tackling. The first time we did this MOU because the county wanted the MOU. It had become clear that there was no formal agreement between the Board of Elections and the county with respect to the administration of staff. And there was a concern that we want to make sure that staff has the same protections that other county employees have. But that was a few years ago. I think that since then, we have developed more concerns, we have more questions, and we want to revisit the MOU to address those concerns and address those questions. But it's going to take a while to do this. I mean, it's not like you sit down in an afternoon and get this done. We're going to have a number of discussions. And one of the things I pointed out to county management was that in 2025, we are going to be focused on these kinds of administrative questions, because this is a relatively quiet year for Board of Elections.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be focused on this MOU. We're going to be focused on facilities questions. We're going to be focused on making sure that a warehouse is provided to the Board of Elections that's going to meet the Board of Elections needs. And, you know, we haven't had those discussions with county management up to this point. The awkward thing is we're going to be changing the board in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
And continuity is really important when it comes to topics such as this.
And maybe
So-
we should get busy.
I'm just gonna pray that we have maximum continuity on this board.
Mr. Quinn,
Mr.
just
Aceto.
one last thought. I've seen this movie before. I go back to 1980s, and I got on the Metropolitan Sewerage District Board, and we always end up back in the sewer. I mean, goodness, that was the high water mark of my political career. And the MSD was set up by the legislature as an independent organization, independent of the county and the city, primarily. And the audience for that was the bondholders.
Yeah.
Because MSD was going to issue bonds to build a sewer line, interceptor plant, all these things, and clean up the French Broad River. Thank you, Ms. Dykeman. And to do that, no one wanted to buy bonds from the city of Asheville or Buncombe County because they remembered what happened in the 1930s. So a separate organization, it was intended to be entirely separate, but all the administration stayed with the city of Asheville. And for 25 years, you know, everything was administered by the city, and they plucked it like a chicken. And I don't think the county does that, but this is different. But what I took away from that was how difficult it was for the staff, who had been so tangled up with the city administration, to be asked to begin to act independently. I mean, it was visibly painful. It was hard. And the board of the MSD had to be prepared to back up the staff and take some of the heat for that, because they still had to have relationships with these people.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds
And so that's why I say I've seen the movie. And there were things that happened in there that would make a dog laugh. I mean, it was really something. But it was accomplished. And it worked. And it was so thoroughly accomplished that you'll recall how the virulent reaction of the city to creating a separate authority for water, because they knew what happened last time. They lost control in a big way. So they have maintained control of the water system, and you tell me how that's working out for you. I'm not going to offer a judgment on it. But that is. But it's the same relationship and the same, but I think it's all the more fraught because we're talking about elections and not talking about a utility. We're talking about something far more elemental than a utility. So, but the process is the same. I think we want to be deferential to staff and not put them in as a board.
Right.
That's one of our objectives in the relationship with the county. We ought to put that front and center, that we are attuned to the staff and that their need to maintain relationships. Also, we'd be ready to take the heat. And again, most importantly, I can't stress it too much, that we have clearly defined objectives. Everybody knows what they are for our relationship. We started with independence. I've suggested that one. After that, you're all going to have to work something out there and talk a little bit more among yourselves. But that would be the gift I would suggest to your next board, is that they come into this. But boy, none of this would have really come to the fore like it did if we hadn't had to
that's a
deal with
good
this
point.
space issue.
Yep.
So I see it as a tremendous gift. It's a gift that's made me think through it in ways that I was not thinking when we did our MOU.
Right, right.
And I'm really grateful for that. But oh dear, it's like a outpatient surgery. Anyway, thank you for this conversation. It's been I've enjoyed it.
We're moving ahead with it.
I have one more thing.
Ms. Stein?
Sorry, this won't take long. When we were working on this MOU, just for us to keep in mind some structure around that, this quasi-governmental definition is a place where we could really pull it out and chew on that as we're working on the MOU about what is a quasi-government and what are the parts in an MOU that really fit that model. And you look up quasi in the dictionary, it's seemingly, apparently, but not really. And we wonder why we're having trouble.
When I was in law school, I was told that that's a weasel word.
A weasel word,
It's
right.
a weasel
It
word.
sucks the meaning out of whatever came
Yeah.
after it, comes after it.
That's all.
But we're not quasi-judicial because there are some judicial powers.
Well, but
Yeah,
the
right.
quasi-governmental has their own, they have statutes. Other organizations do have statutes that they have to work on. Mental health had to do it. I was involved with Blue Ridge Center for 1,000,000 years. Blue Ridge Center had all the mental health laws, and they were part of a government. And so that's always conflicting. And so, we have seen this picture before, and I think we can tackle it. But quasi is a very wussy, kind of weird word. And yet that's where we end in this kind of no man's land with this stuff. So anyway, that's all I have.
Director Duncan, I know that you've been waiting a long
Been
time.
like scribbling little things
chime
down.
in,
So
right.
it's going to be very out of order.
Okay,
but,
we're going to limit you to 10 minutes on this, okay?
So for the legal retainer is a really concrete thing. So that's like something that's kind of interesting to me. I am happy to ask our Directors Association, NCADE, if there are any other counties
Thank you.
that do this.
Please do.
Okay, I will put that on my list. There was a question about
So
whether
I guess
anyone.
I should ask the board.
Exactly, you're reading my mind, Mary Ann.
There was a question about whether anyone from the county watched our meetings. I know that DK did occasionally, at least. It's open to the public, so I know that happens sometimes. And of course, I'm communicating, so I'm letting. I have meetings with my ACM at least once a month, and I'm talking about what's happening in elections. So there's that. With the MOU, I think that was the first memorandum of understanding that we've ever had, and the intention of that was to have good communication about what we did, and it was the first one. So doing another one sounds like a great idea. And obviously we have some things that we want to clarify. I think that's very positive. Glenn, you asked a question about 35 Woodfin accommodations, so I put in the chat. Did they do any other things that I wasn't thinking about? And there was a room that was long and skinny that they divided for us. So we were able to make that one storage room into 2 offices. They put another window into the boardroom room. Once we realized that we couldn't have the 950 and electionware in the same space, they put a window in there for us.
Small one.
Something like this, you mean, or?
A quarter of that size, I would say. 2 of those.
quarter of
3 of them.
that size,
I
yeah.
think there's 3 of them alongside. Am I remembering correctly? I think there's 3. I think there's 2 right now.
There
And
were
they're adding
2
a third.
last time I was there.
Yes, and they're adding a third. In the lobby, we're closing a door. There's a front door. If we leave that open, we lose space inside, and also everyone's gonna come to the election door instead of going to the lobby where they need to go. So they're closing that off for us. Gotta get to the right space here. In the flex space outside of our walls, they blocked off and named those 4 elections, those 6 cubicles, if I'm remembering the number correctly.
Wasn't that for staff from the warehouse?
It's not warehouse, it'd be any seasonal staff. They built in some shelves in when we realized that the room was not big enough for the 950 and everything. They are building shelves in there to help have vertical storage. And that is it.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure I was giving credit for the things.
They shoehorn in what they can.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty.
There's a question.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes, Mr. Aceto said that this reply was really directed to the audience and not to you.
Well, it's addressed,
I have not seen.
it's addressed to the Buncombe County Board of Elections.
For
I think
education.
this says elections, but the cover email did say Board of Education. It's, and I think that Mr. Aceto's point, and I do not mean to put words in your mouth, sir, but the real audience for this is a third party, not us. This is telling the community, we, the Buncombe County Commissioners, support the Board of Elections tremendously. Just look,
Yeah.
that's what this,
And that they responded when we asked them for a response.
well, right, they sent us something,
Finally.
right, so I think that's what it is. When he says that this was written for the jury, it's, an objective third party would look at this.
Good for us to share with Cause, Carolina, other.
Sure, this is a public
It's a
document.
public record.
This is a
Yeah.
public document. This was sent by the Buncombe County Commissioners or by the chair to the Board of Elections.
So I don't know where I would
If you
find
put a records request in,
Oh, I'll-
the old record.
Well, at this point, since it was directed to us, we can make it part of these minutes. You know, I mean,
Anybody
why
who
not?
wants my copy can have it.
Yeah, mine too. I've got it in email,
Right, I've got it in email, so,
I think putting
you
it
know,
in the minutes.
if, Mr. Brown,
I think that's what Steve is asking.
Make the attorney retainer a contingency rather than a non-contingency.
well, thank you, that's a very good question. I threw out the notion of amending the budget with a contingency item. The reason I said contingency is because, well, like I said, I didn't want to make it look as if I was being, that I needed a lawyer to go talk to their lawyer kind of thing. This is in my mind, it's just in case. But the benefit of having the discussion here today is I think it's very clear that just in case is definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm indifferent as to how we would characterize this in our budget as a contingency item or just as a $20,000 item.
Yeah, Mr. Quinn,
Mr. Aceto, I really do appreciate your experience and wisdom in this area. And so I eagerly am cocking my ear in your direction. What do you think we should do?
thank you. It's just because I've had my hair sit on fire before. But I still have hair. See, so it worked out. It worked out.
Rub it in. Go ahead.
So never have to spell it out for Jake. He gets it. So anyway, when we're talking about engaging legal counsel, we probably need legal counsel to tell us how to do more about it. Yeah, that there comes a point where the board has to take action to engage counsel and come up with an objective and all this. It is appropriate, I think, to call it a contingency that against the possibility that we would need to engage counsel specifically. And then at that point, then we have the option to do that and go into an executive session and receive the advice and have the benefit of confidentiality, because it's a lawyer talking to his client.
Right.
You know, and as Kurt Euler told Jake, you know, this is a problem for Kurt.
Right.
I mean, he's got this confidentiality issue, and he always has to stick his hands up and say, "This is my client. This is my client." And we're always, when we're talking to Jake, to Kurt, we're only getting half of the conversation because he can't tell us the other half. It's not that he's sneaky, not at all. You know, he's doing what he ought to do. So, but when we say we want a legal contingency, you know, we're not threatening anybody. We're really giving them the gift, again, of independence and confidentiality, and giving everybody room to have an adult conversation with someone in the room who knows more than we do. So that's not that we don't have one every time we sit here with with these fine folks, but I want to affirm, and for Doug's benefit, that I think this is the right way to approach it, and I hope it's understood that way.
Well, I appreciate your perspective on it. I really do. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to make a motion to amend our budget submission to the county to add a $20,000 contingency item for outside legal assistance. There's a motion before the board. Any questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. And I look forward to hearing the reception that the amendment receives.
Okay. Victoria and I will send the request, and we'll let them know that the board, did this under a motion, took action on it, and we will let you know how that goes, because the process is underway and all this stuff. I'm sure that we'll hear more.
Good. Thank you, everyone. That was
Interesting.
lengthy but fruitful discussion, I think. The next item on the agenda is list maintenance review.
Budget update.
Well, I'm sorry, budget update. We just did budget update. You want to know what the budget update was? We added $20,000 to the. And ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of full disclosure, the reason for the budget update item was because after I read that letter, I wanted to add something for legal.
Okay.
And so that's why budget was on the agenda today.
So Victoria doesn't have any budget updates?
No, I just love seeing Victoria. She does such a good job helping us. But I wanted Victoria to hear the discussion too, so that, when she's dealing with counterparts in county government, she's got the benefit of the fullness of our discussion. Martha.
Finance nerd question. Are you given a not to exceed amount that, okay, you've got X dollars to make your budget here, or are you allowed to say this is what we'd like, and then there's negotiations as to the
It's the latter. Director Duncan and her staff come up with the best estimate that they can on what it's going to cost to conduct election services in the budget year, in the fiscal year. And then that gets submitted to, it works its way up the chain. Director Duncan deals with people and budget, but she also has to deal with her assistant county manager before it goes to the county manager and that sort of thing. But there is a give and take, a back and forth. If we were just given a set sum, here you go, Board of Elections, you get X million dollars to do your job, it would make things a lot different for us.
I know, just some places say, well, you can have last year plus 10%.
Oh.
Everybody does things differently.
Okay, and just so everybody knows, our budget fluctuates, even years versus odd numbered years, because we have, huge elections in those even numbered years, and then a lot quieter in the odd numbered years. But thank you for the question, Martha. Good to see you back in the meeting.
And Mr. Quinn, I talk about the gifts here. I say, I believe it. Christ is king, and he's a good king, and he gives us good gifts, and that's every one of you. Martha, all of my, about the MSD, I mean, she was my silent partner through all of that. Well, she wasn't so silent, but anyway. But, I gotta say, I mean, I'm just thrilled. As soon as I saw her show up, I was thrilled. She knows these things.
Oh, that's
So
great.
here we have another gift. Thank you, Martha. I'm so glad you're here. And there's all these things I don't have to explain because you can.
All right, so now budget's done, right? Good, now we can do list maintenance review.
So this agenda item was requested.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that I understood that it was kind of a request for an overview of the process and then what we are doing right now.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Okay, great. So as the board knows, but I always like repeating resources, there is on the state board's website this quite hefty document of voter registration list maintenance. So there's a lot more details in here than what I'm going to go over now, especially since I want this meeting done by 5. So I will do my best, and then Amy, our voter registration specialist, is here. So if there's questions that I can't answer, Amy's here for us. So there are multiple types of list maintenance. So this is a lot I'm going to throw at you here at once. We do there's daily types, there's weekly types, there's bi-weekly types, and then there are ones that happen once or twice a year. So we continuously, like daily, we're inputting new registrations, which is another way that we're looking at list maintenance, and of course all of the other things, the cancellations that people send us, any death records. We look at all of those on a daily basis. And we get that from the voters themselves. In the case of people who pass away, their families are allowed to do that. The state board sends us information, and we got information through the DMV too. So that's things that we do every day. And then on a weekly basis, we have a bunch of reports that we're looking at. So NCID is one. So we all have voter registration numbers. We also have NCID numbers. Those follow us if you move from county to county. So that's a list that we have. We have something called the DBA report, and this is a report that has possible things. So a human needs to look at it to see if these are matches. So this is confidential voters. There's kind of also just some data vetting. So if there's a number that's typed into a name, then we go look at it and make sure that that was a data error. Date of birth, registrations date, removed, duplicates, those kind of things. We also have the DHHS report. So that's the when people pass away. We have a felon list that we look at, so that on a weekly basis we're looking for those. And this isn't Buncombe County does this. This is what the state is asking. So there's exact match duplicates. So they have found a duplicate somewhere, whether it's in our own record or between counties. And we have a similar one that is possible matches. So we look to see what's happening with the possible match. Then on a monthly basis, we do send out reports on our numbers of registrations that come from other departments. So as part of NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act, other agencies like through DHHS and those kind of things are required to have voter registration forms and send those to us. So we report those numbers. That's not really list maintenance, but it's I think an interesting component of registration that we do. We also do national change of address. And so that is a comparison of the post office data with our data. And if we find a name that has addresses that are different, we check with that voter and say, hey, which one of these is right? There's also a federal felony conviction report that the state gives us, and there is biennial list maintenance. And that's biennial list maintenance is the one where if you haven't voted in a very, very long time, the state will remove you according to all of the rules, which you can find in the manual. We completed our biennial list maintenance in February, and there were almost 9,000 voters on that list. And we 9,000 voters on that list.
Changes or additions, subtractions?
Yes, so
Removals.
that's removals, yep. And that's, having a number like that is normal. And then this year, we sent out 3,900 national change of address. We just did that. So we're processing those as they come back, and that was also a normal, a number
Did you say that was
similar.
your biennial
Uh,
in February?
The February
Okay.
one is biennial, yes.
So every 2 years.
Yeah, right after a federal election.
Yeah, biennial, not biannual.
Yeah, I always have to double check.
Thank you, Amy. And that's why that number is big. And then, like I said, we just did the NCOA, the National Change of Address. So that was about 4,000 cards, and we're processing those now. That's also a number that's normal compared to the
And those are removals
others.
also?
Though that's the comparing, hey, here's your post office address, and here's the one we have.
So it's just
What's right?
4,000 that you had to compare?
Yes.
Do you have any update on, oh, I guess it just went out, so you don't have any update on the changes yet?
Correct.
Yeah, we just this
Yeah.
week started receiving them back, so there's a fair amount of moved out of county, there's a fair amount of it's the same as it used to be, there's a fair amount of, people we won't receive cards back from. So we'll
Okay.
just have to see how that all ends up.
Okay.
And then Amy just gave some statistics to remind us of that we have, so after the biannual list maintenance, we have 209,000, a little bit over, registered voters in Buncombe. And that's about 75% of our population. Do you have any questions?
Really, I was interested because there's just a lot of interest in how we maintain our list publicly these days. I mean, with court cases and all of that, so I just kind of wanted an update on, where we were with it, what kind of numbers we might have, and I'd like a continued update as we get information, just to kind of get a feel for where we are in Buncombe County.
So you kind of maybe would like an update each time we do NCOA or a biennial list maintenance, or is that, or we're switching?
Results of it, I
Yeah.
You know, so whenever that would be appropriate, I mean, if you just sent out.
I mean, whenever she actually has numbers for us,
Right.
you know, to look at, it would just be nice to know.
I need to get with the state to know.
How
that
to
we can
see
run
the
that report.
changes.
Yeah, yeah. There's some it's easy to get that number, and then there's some that I'm like, I did, 100 today, or whatever, so.
Yeah.
I need to figure out a succinct, efficient way to.
Right.
Run a report.
That's great. One other, is there more, Mary Ann? Was that?
No, that's good.
One other question about, I'm just curious about what a confidential voter is.
Yeah, that is a good question, and my staff is always welcome to
I'm
supplement
happy to
my
talk about
answers.
it.
Yes, but confidential voters are a very select group of people who have a court order to have their address not shown in the registration database. So they have to provide certain documents and keep those up to date to make that happen. And there's very few. There's a handful of those in Buncombe County of all of our registered voters.
Are these
I'm
like
just-
famous people?
They have to be protected because of
Witness
yeah,
Something
yes.
legal.
Mhm.
That would make sense.
Or a lot of those domestic relations.
Right.
Situations.
That's what it's gonna be more than anything else, I
Thank you.
believe.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Martha.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, but is there a way we can get a list of the people who were removed from the rolls? Because part of what, a lot of the parties are doing on the ground, I can't speak for the public, but, we have lists of the people in our precincts, and if we want to canvass or phone bank or whatever, so do
Let's
we
do
have that? Because a lot of times, it's confusing because you have two people at the same different names, the same address, we don't know which ones are the ones that.
So on our website, we have our registration database in Excel format that gets updated every night. So that would be the easiest to have the most updated registrations.
But would that have the names that she's talking about?
It just has who is registered now.
Right, so we'd have to compare and see who was taken off.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Any more on list maintenance? All right, the final agenda item is next meeting date?
Can I confirm some things really quickly before
Certainly.
we move on? I know I'm the one who wants it to end at 5. So you
got
would
20
like
seconds.
me, I just have some
19,
action items. So, put in a budget request. Ask other counties whether they have a legal retainer. How much did the move cost? And that is the moving company moving us. Okay.
Well, whatever costs you have, I mean, you may be adding costs that you know of, it's gonna be coming out of your budget, for instance.
Got it.
But
Not
the-
the
Get over
cost
there. Yeah,
of
when you get
construction.
over
What the
Just the
moving
cost
cost
of
is
the moving
and
cost.
what your costs are for moving.
Okay, great. And then that the board intends to revisit the MOU and would like to have some presentation of the ideas of what the warehouse is going to be before drawings are made.
Yes.
Right. Hopefully at our next
Can-
meeting.
And can I add one more thing to follow up on, and you may have it in somewhere, but just to not not put it off of the list, is the whole idea of what's the data we're going to begin to collect from day one over there that will show us whether some of our heartburn was legitimate or not, and what things are going to look like that are the same and different as we move forward. But the sooner we get those set up in some kind of database, then you can start putting that information in when it pops up. So
There's in the chat some interesting information about that list. That
So Devin is reminding me that in the voter registration file, it has removed. And it has the reason.
State one.
Ours is, our on website is only active and inactive and temporary. The one on the state site, the like snapshots have everybody.
So inactive, removed, active.
And that's by county too, isn't it, Devin, on the state side?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the whole state.
Yeah, you can download county by county though.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can separate. Their data is amazing. They have a lot of data and different ways to parse it. Thank you, Devin.
I love that duck. All right, ladies and gentlemen, next meeting date. Director Duncan, do you have a recommendation on this? Mr. Choi,
I just have a quick question.
shoot.
Could you tell us briefly the process and timeline for the new board?
Everything is sort of tentative. There is a change in election administration that's currently scheduled for May 1st, and responsibility for election administration will shift to the Office of the Auditor. The parties are supposed to make nominations, recommendations. I think in May, a new state board will be appointed in June, and that state board will appoint county boards in July. I think that's approximately correct.
Yes, so on June 25th, the appointments of county boards will be made.
By the new state board. Okay.
Correct.
Almost July.
Yes, minus the chair. That will be
Appointed by the auditor.
by the auditor.
Will that be on the same day?
On the, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was thinking it was the same day, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
But
All of this could be changed because this law is subject to a judicial challenge. It will be heard on April the 14th. 14th, well, the one I got said the 14th. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what,
Yeah.
but we're just sort of expecting all that change to occur.
Yeah.
So,
And then swearing in of those board members would be July 22nd.
July, right.
And somewhere in between there, we would do an orientation.
Member, if I am still on the board at that point, do I need to be sworn in as well? So I need
Oh,
to
yeah.
put that on my calendar for that day. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you've done this a lot of times, you have to get sworn in and you have to get reoriented.
Especially with changes in law.
Well,
And it's very helpful if there's new members in the orientation to have experienced members there.
right, right. So, do you want to take that?
Corinne, just for
29th.
my purposes, you said you were looking at legal counsel moving expenses. What was that little list?
Asking NCADE for whether other counties have someone on retainer. The budget, 20,000 budget request. How much did the move cost? Just the moving, not the facility. That the board intends to review the MOU. That the board would like to see to have input into the warehouse plan before drawings are made. And then a report on NCOA as we get data.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, so April, so the end,
April 29th is a Tuesday.
April 29th. I don't see any conflicts for April 29th on our end.
April 29th work for y'all? Between now and then, I would hope that Director Duncan could get feedback on the budget amendment. And, might give us a chance to tee things up for the rest of the year. Looking at the MOU, looking at facilities issues.
Would you like me to request a presentation for that?
Please.
And that meeting would be at 3:30?
Yeah. Mr. Choi?
Is that orientation for the new board open to the public?
No, it's just for the board members. It's not a meeting, it's a training session. If it was a meeting, it would be open to the public.
You're
Oh.
gonna have that meeting at 3:30?
The 3:30 right here. Oh my goodness, it would be our last meeting at 59 Woodfin Place. No? I would expect a May meeting to occur at 35 Woodfin, right?
Oh,
Okay.
so
What do we got?
the boardroom at 35 is probably not gonna be done. So we can use this until that is done. Yeah.
So we
but-
can use this all the way until January 2027. Hey,
If the boardroom's not finished. Yeah, which is entirely possible.
just laughing to fight back the tears. All right, next meeting date is Tuesday, April 29th at 3:30 right here. And I guess it won't be the last meeting at this space. Does anyone have any questions or comments for the board? I want to thank you all for coming out today. And if there is no business to come before this board, meeting's adjourned, 9 minutes.